Welcome back to another episode of Meet Cute, where we explore the stories of extraordinary people with radical meat-based beliefs. I'm your host, Alex Rhodes. On today's episode, we welcome Lily Kane. We go over her relationship with food and how it has evolved over time. We talk about how carnivore has affected her mental and physical health, how she faced a sugar addiction in college, and how her cravings have completely changed. Stay tuned. All right. So honestly, this is the most I've known about a guest coming in because of the YouTube video that you did. And I will link that below, although I'm sure we'll touch on pretty much all of those things. But can you go ahead and just give us a little bit of a summary into your background?
I was born and raised in San Diego. My parents met out of alcoholism and in their addiction to drugs. And so that doesn't last very long for a relationship. Eventually they got divorced where my dad left when I was like 5 years old. My mom gained custody of both my sister and I. And so I haven't seen my dad, heard from my dad. I don't know anything about that side of my life, my genetics, my grandparents, my hospital or medical things I should know about that. And then with my mom tried her best to be sober for a little bit when she was trying to get custody initially. And then after that, then she just went back into her old ways of just waking up at 8 a.m., drinking her wine out of her coffee mug while she would drive my sister and I to work or to school. Then she would just date different abusive men to try and replace that dad figure in our life. And so there was just a constant revolving door of different men coming in who were abusive, verbally, physically. And it was just like walking on eggshells all the time at my house where you didn't know what you were going to run into or who was going to be there. But the police were all often at my house. It was an embarrassing thing. It was something that I was shameful of. And I took it out in a very positive way where I just got really involved in my church. I was a deacon and a greeter. I got straight A's. I was in track and field and volleyball and theater and art club and photography and volunteer club. I just absorbed myself in so many positive things just to keep myself away from home, but just to keep me positive as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's such a successful way to cope. A lot of people don't have a lot of success in coping. I would assume that your mom used alcohol to cope. Right. But, you decided to put yourself into things that were positive and uplifting. And I think that's hard when you're in situations like that. I can imagine that choice to be positive and to stay positive, I can imagine would be a little bit more difficult than anything else.
Well, and at the time too, I was I was 13. The first time my mom kicked my sister and I out of the house, evicted us, which means you're kicking your tenants out, which we're not when we're your kids. And then when I was 16, that was officially when I moved out for the final time. And she said she never wanted to see me again. She took all of my clothes, put it in trash bags, said she was going to burn all my things. And then I eventually went and legally got to be emancipated. So that way I would not have any, she would show up to my school drunk and the police would have to show up to my school. And it was just a whole thing where it was just better to just cut all sort of ties. So I wouldn't have to keep getting removed out of school for her showing up saying that I was kidnapped and things like that. So no one taught me at that time that I had to be strong or to stay positive. It was just something that, I don't know, I just kind of gravitated towards. So it's challenging when people will ask me questions like, well, how did you get through it? Or how did you decide that you weren't going to get yourself into drugs and alcohol yourself? I'm like, I don't know. I just saw really, I guess, how sad she was. And I didn't want that for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like that repelling. You're like, I don't want to feel like that. You can see the pain probably that she's in. And you're why would I want to be that way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what was your relationship with food like when you were younger? In your household, what did you eat? I would imagine, having a parent that's not necessarily present had to have affected, what you were able to get your hands on.
Yeah. And my mom also didn't have a job. So then she also, we lived on food stamps. So we were very poor. So we grew up going to the 99-cent store in San Diego and grocery shopping. So we would get a lot of top ramen, macaroni and cheese, peanut butter and jelly, mini pancakes that you microwave for breakfast, oatmeal, cereal. So just really processed foods, just easy things to make. But I would just say a lot of pasta, a lot of, I just remember peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every single day. And then either macaroni and cheese or top ramen, or it was really special if my sister and I got to split a Little Caesars pizza.
Nice.
But I really couldn't binge eat per se, or I couldn't have like a really hardcore addiction to sugar because we didn't have the money for it. So I didn't even have
Right.
access to overeat. So I think I was mostly in a calorie deficit my whole life. And then once I went
Hmm.
to college, then I had like all you can eat buffet and I gained 20 pounds.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, that's a perfect example of, it's maybe not a clinical definition of anorexia, but like being in a severe calorie deficit is something that we face definitely today. And then going into those cycles of binging, if you can't control it, right, you'll starve yourself and then you'll binge and then you'll starve yourself and then you'll binge. How was the communication around food in your house? Did your mom ever even talk about nutrition?
Oh no way. That's the thing too, is I feel kind of silly now being in the health space, and people may think like, oh, she has lots of education around this. And I did not go to college for nutrition. I went to college for economics. I took one nutrition course, so I really didn't know anything about nutrition or carbs. Like when I heard carbs, I was like, oh, that just means bread. I didn't think of bananas, carrots. I didn't think of those things as carb foods. And then, like I said, too, it was more of one of those things where if you have broccoli, but you have a cookie, then it cancels each other out and it's like equal. It doesn't matter that you just put a bunch of chemicals from deep fried Oreos that I would soak in canola oil and fry. That was fine as long as I had the broccoli. I didn't really learn anything about health and nutrition until I met my fiance. And then that's where I was like, what? So,
Yeah. So what do you think was the downfall in college?
well, I think then you had access to, not that I was like a huge drinker because I just hate the taste of alcohol, but there was alcohol. Then there was just like so much more processed foods. Like I mean, yes, I grew up eating processed foods in terms of macaroni and top ramen, but in college, I got to have more of the desserts, whereas having Oreos and cookies and ice cream and having more of those sugary desserts, where then it was like every single day, I get to have that, I get to have that. And then every single lunch, every single breakfast, and not realizing that even if I wasn't having dessert, it still was dessert. So having a whole entire cup of raisins, like way more than a serving size of raisins, is still just eating sugar. Or
Yeah.
having oatmeal with maple syrup inside with, powdered sugar. It was just I was constantly eating dessert and I didn't realize it. And so
Hmm.
then I started having like more mental like mood swings and issues because of, I think at that point just so much sugar. Whereas in the past I was like in such a calorie deficit I couldn't even like get to that point of like being able to be
Yeah.
as irritable.
Yeah. So do you think you maybe developed a little bit of a sugar addiction through college?
Oh yeah, once I was in college.
Did you ever feel like food was in control of your life? Like when you were in college, were you just like food is the driver? You're at lunch, you're thinking about what you're going to eat for dinner.
Well, yes, I did always think about what was going to be the next thing I was eating, but it's interesting because I wouldn't have thought that at the time. Like now, and it's not even until you asked me this question, do you think that food was the main driver in my mental health, even overall? I would have told you the answer was boys. So, like, if a boy was not texting me or doesn't like me, like my whole day focused around boys. When can I see a boy? When can I meet a boy? And like, if they don't like me, then all these, and then that's when I started thinking, well, this guy told me that if I just cut a little bit of carbs, then I can have better abs. So now I need to exercise hardcore. I need to not eat carbs. I need to eat in my bedroom by myself because now I'm just eating a bag of turkey without the bread. So that way I don't want to look like a weirdo. So I'm just going to eat this bag of turkey in my room and I'm going to cry because I'm miserable. And then I'm going to go and eat sugar later tonight. And then I'm going to feel guilty when I go to bed. So tomorrow I'm going to wake up early and I'm going to go on the treadmill and then I'm going to eat more sugar. That's how the
Yeah.
cycle, it was all revolving around the ideal of getting a man to love me because I desperately needed love from my whole childhood, that like when I didn't get the love from the man, then I needed to fix myself, become stronger. I wanted to work out harder in the gym so I can get more muscles. So then I don't need a man because I'm more strong and I'm tough. That's kind of where that
Yeah.
all led down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's really amazing that you make the connection between all of those things, right? Maybe it wasn't ever that you just wanted a man, but that you just really needed love, like that you maybe like grew up in an absence of love. And so I think it's really important to, always focus on the part of, a lot of this journey is like addressing trauma, shifting your mindset and, really evolving as a person to think about food differently, to see food differently, to see it as a friend and not a foe. And so I think this is where we kind of get into obviously you meeting your fiance. Did you guys immediately go to like a carnivore lifestyle?
No. So he had already eaten a all fruit fruitarian diet. Then he ate a vegan diet. Then he went to just plant-based. So he actually went to the extreme first to fruitarian. Then it wasn't working. So he's like, okay, maybe I have to add the vegetables. So he went vegan. Then he's like, still not really working. Maybe I should add like some dairy. So he went vegetarian. And then it was like Mediterranean, paleo, keto. And keto really helped his gut issues that he had from years of doing a plant-based diet. So he had done keto, but then when I met him, he had moved back into his like bodybuilding diet because he found that, oh my gosh, keto healed me. I can go back to eating my bodybuilding diet. So when I met him, he was eating 6 meals a day, lots of like rice, chicken, protein bars, protein powders, vegetables, but never really processed foods per se, because he just doesn't do that. Then when I met him, I was just eating my Lily Kane diet of alcohol, pizza, chips, tacos, deep fried Oreos, whatever I wanted. And then, and so when I met him, it was our first date was getting rum and ice cream and eating that on the couch. And at the time, like, I remember we went to the grocery store and he just wanted to get like a little pint. And I was like, gosh, this guy's cheap. Like, why does he only want to get a little pint of ice cream? And he didn't even have any of it. And I was like, wow, it makes me feel like kind of weird because like I'm eating all this ice cream by myself. So eventually it just started turning into things where I would just ask him questions like, well, why don't you like ice cream? Or why don't you like dessert? He's like, no. Like, if you want it, I'll go drive you to get the donut at Krispy Kreme. And it made me just reflect on myself. Like, why do I need that to be happy? Because like, it's like my day's not complete unless I have dessert. And then eventually we'd go grocery shopping. And like I said, I didn't grow up having lots of nutrition education. So he would buy the organic bananas and I would just buy regular bananas. And I would say, haha, you're paying 20 more cents for the organic. And he's like, I didn't even register like what that really meant. And he's like, why? Like, it's 20 cents today, but in the future, it's going to save me, lots of money because I'm not having all these additional pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, chemicals. So then he would not have the tomatoes. Why aren't you buying tomatoes? Because they have lectins. Okay, what's a lectin? Like, it just started asking more and more questions where he never tried to force anything on me. And then just slowly, I was just learning more things like, okay, I'm just not going to have bread today. I'm not going to have rice this week, but not because nobody's telling me to, not because I need to for weight loss or for mental health. I was just thinking like, I don't know, I really respect him and he's tried everything, he's done everything, and he seems to have a good understanding of food. So if he's not doing it and he looks healthy and he's 9 years older than me, looks younger than me, then I'm going to try to mimic in a way with my own version of how, what makes me feel good. But he noticed that for himself. Even I was able to sneak in some days of paninis and of burritos and of nachos. So I was able to sneak in certain days of fun foods where he started noticing his health was going down pretty quickly, that he was like, I can't keep eating like this. I need to go back to eating a ketogenic diet. And so that's when he started doing that. And I thought, okay, well, maybe we're just not having tortillas this week. Like, it was one of those things where I didn't really know what that meant, but I just kind of went, he never said I had to do keto with him. I just like, it's easier for us to grocery shop and cook and clean and eat together instead of making 2 separate meals and doing the whole thing separate. And so, yeah, eventually we just started doing keto because he needed to for his health, and he already knew the benefits that he experienced with it. And then eventually he started learning more about like Michaela Peterson and Ken Berry and vegetables, maybe not agreeing with the gut. And he had like leaky gut, ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, and just different things with gut issues. So he was like, I think I'm going to stop having broccoli right now. I think I'm going to stop having Brussels sprouts right now. So he slowly was removing the vegetables. And I was like, well, that's not fair. Why do I have to keep eating this cauliflower? So eventually I just started removing them slowly too.
That's amazing. So, as far as mentally, like, how did you feel? Obviously that switch to keto, it had to have been life-changing for you.
Well, it's really challenging because I very gradually moved into it. So it was like I was eating my standard American diet and then I slowly was eating low carb and I didn't even realize it. And then I was slowly eating keto and I didn't really realize it. So it was such a gradual transition that people will say, oh, when you went from standard American to keto, like, how did you have keto flu? Did you have headaches? Did you have migraines? I was like, I didn't even know that this was happening. Like, it just gradually happened over the course of about a year.
Yeah.
So it was so gradual that I lost weight as it happened, but not because, like I was doing keto to lose weight. Like it just like
right.
I didn't even know I was losing weight. It wasn't until I met a friend again who they were like, hey, you lost some weight. And I was offended. I was like, what? But mentally now looking back on it, like I started my period yesterday, and I
Mm-hmm.
used to always like cry and be so angry and be so irritable. I would have terrible cramps that were debilitating, where I would have to get wheelchaired out of my school, or I would have my head on the desk, like I just couldn't even function because they were so terrible. Now I just start it and don't even know what's happening. I'm like, what's happening today? And it's still just like every day is just like pretty. I noticed that my energy, rather than being this burst of energy and then a mood swing, and it's like, and then the crash in energy, it's just more of the stable energy where inside I feel more calm, where before it was like always feeling riled up. So the calmness aspect is the biggest thing. And that's kind of the thing I needed too. Because obviously someone going through a lot of trauma kind of have like more anxiety like
Mm-hmm.
tendencies, where when you put foods into your body that aren't altering your brain chemistry and altering your mood, you're able to think more clearly and be able to like, I feel like I can stop time in a way where if tension is rising or conversations are getting heated, I can be like, okay, stop. Why is this person saying this? How can I put myself in their shoes? How can I empathize? Because as much as I want to say that I'm right and try to keep stimulating the problem to prove that I'm right, I can instead stop time and like take myself out of the situation and then like analyze it better. So I think
Yeah.
that's a big win.
That's a huge win. And I just want to reiterate because I think that's absolutely amazing. Because thoughts are just a feed, right? But like there is this like intuitive nature that we have. And unfortunately, I think because of the foods that we eat, that intuitive nature is almost taken away from you to where we like empathize with others and we
Mm.
put them first. And when we're in a conversation, we think, oh, can I see this from where they're coming from? Because I will tell you, I'll be the first one to tell you, I struggled with that forever. I'm like, I don't give a, because I'm very pragmatic, just in general. I'm like, I don't give a rip what you think or say. I'm gonna defend my point until I die.
Mhm.
But there really is like this shift, and I'm glad that you noticed it. And it may take time. I don't think it's an overnight thing. Like you said, your journey was like a year, and it's kind of what I mean, like year over year, like how
Mhm.
has this changed for you? And I think it's really important to take note that we focus so hard on changing our thoughts when, the root of our thoughts is because we're in an altered brain chemistry state, or, it's coming from somewhere else that is not like this pure essence of who we are. And so, the changing of your thoughts part, I think is like really where I'm trying to like nail this down, and I'm still exploring and learning and growing in. But I love that I love that that's the first thing you went to is like, I feel so calm and I feel like I'm in control of myself versus something else driving me. And I think that ketogenic diets or, carnivore diets or even animal based, I mean, if you're, not insulin resistant and, you can handle fruit and stuff, it is so much better. Like that thought process. And that's part of like what I'm trying to express.
Well, definitely. I know through this interview, maybe I confuse people, or it's not like the direct answer that people want to hear, but it has been where in the past, the foods I was eating absolutely were impacting my day. At the time, I didn't realize it. I was in denial. So if there's anybody else who's like, no, 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 like I eat pizza and that's because I'm making the choice for myself. Sure. For me, that wasn't the case, though at the time I did believe that
Mm-hmm.
wholeheartedly. Like, no, of course I'm choosing this. I was lean, I was skinny. In my head, I was healthy. I didn't realize that the negative thoughts or the just not feeling as great or not having as much energy or having the joint pain or having the acne or having um, just different factors driving my day. I didn't realize that those things could be disappeared, gone. I didn't realize, I was like, oh, I'm going to have knee pain because I did 8 years of hurdling and jumping and sprinting. Of course, I'm going to have knee pain. No, not of course. It doesn't have to be a thing. So people live with little aches and pains, and they don't realize that those things could be taken away. And then once they're away, you're like, wait a second. That was
Yeah.
because of what I was eating?
Yeah. It's just this little awareness, but it's definitely something that you don't know in the beginning, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's, really where I want to highlight is like all of this comes from looking back, and like people are on this journey and it's so like there's so much misinformation like you've said. And people go on diets and get this in their head that they're going to feel so much better. And maybe they do feel slightly better, but it's still those little tiny things you're talking about, like the negative thought patterns, the negative feedback loops, the sugar addiction that you really don't realize is an addiction because you eat it at every meal.
Right.
And it's just those little things that have the littlest negative outcomes on your day, but make a big impact overall. So you look back at college and you're like, that was the worst time for me. But it's not that you're going in and pinpointing, like, I remember in 2013 at this time that I felt this way. But now you're like addressing and looking at your life as a whole and how you feel day to day, like this last year, and being like, wow, what a stark difference from now versus then. And so I think, yeah, it's just honestly fantastic.
Well, and even again, when you say sugar addiction, like the word addiction is so strong that people are like, I don't have an addiction. Like, if you were to ask me, did you have an addiction when you were younger? I'd been like, no, I never had a sugar addiction. But now I will. But at the time, again, I wouldn't have ever said that because it's like, oh, I can stop this if I wanted to. No, you can't. I mean, like you could. I did it. But I think the word addiction is so, you think like they've really like, they're like needing the sugar right now. And that wasn't the case in my mind, but that was the reality. Like it was something that I couldn't just give up nonchalantly. And it's part of and the tough part too with sugar specifically is it's different than something like alcohol or smoking a cigarette maybe, because it's something that not everybody does. And not everybody, like even alcohol, it's something you do maybe one time a week or a couple times a week. Whereas with sugar, people are eating it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if everybody's doing it, it's okay and it's acceptable. And therefore, if everybody's eating it, technically, how is it an addiction unless everybody's addicted?
Right. Yeah. No. Everybody is addicted. And I love that example because I think a lot of things seem really aggressive and abrasive from the outside, right? Like I wasn't starving myself, for 2 or 3 days and then blacking out and eating everything in sight and, coming to and feeling immense guilt and shame, because it was normal, but it is sort of normalized, right? And then you have people in like a bodybuilding community or, personal trainers, and they're trying to infringe on this. Like, I understand that you're binging, but you can just go for a walk instead, and like, that's not how it works. That's like telling a sugar addict, like, yeah, just go full day of carnivore. You can do it, and it's like, there is like, absolutely, can you push through that 100% without a shadow of a doubt. And I believe that, the longer you eat a, nutrient dense diet, the easier it becomes. But it is this issue of people addressing it like it's not a big deal, and like people aren't struggling, from it. And, like you said, it goes back to those little small differences that we notice and we correlate together and we're like, wow, I really felt like crap. Even though in that moment you were like, I'm all right. I'm as best as I can be, I'm as good as I can be. But then now you're here and you're like, whoa, I wish I would have known. But yeah, I think it's time to stop thinking of these. We've come to a point where I feel like, 1 in 4 people have a mental health disorder, like 20% of women are going to have an eating disorder in their lifetime. Like, we've got to stop thinking that these are so abrasive and just like sloughing it off. Because if 20% of women are going to have an eating disorder, can you imagine how many are going to be undiagnosed in addition to those 20%? Like, we're just going on history of like women who have actually come in and sought help. But like, there are so many people out there struggling with sugar addiction and, binge eating disorder, bulimia, anorexia, whatever it is. And I don't think that the actual diagnosis is talked about a lot. Binge eating is at 1 episode per week over a 3-month period. That's how they diagnose binge eating. And so if I think back to, my days, although I naturally came out of it, and, over time, I was made fun of for being fat. I was severely overweight. So like all of those little things eventually were positives for me to go on. But, looking back, I mean, I was having, 4 to 5 binge episodes a week, which would have been way more than what the like diagnostic guidelines are. And so I never even thought, oh, I should go to the doctor for this, you know? So yeah, I think we really need to not, it's not normal, but it is normalizing the aggression. Like for people to like acknowledge like, yes, this sort of is aggressive. Like this sort of is a big deal. Like even myself, if somebody would have been like, oh, you have a binge eating disorder, I'm like, are you crazy? A disorder?
Yeah,
Isn't
yeah,
that a little aggressive?
yeah,
But it's
yeah.
really not.
Yeah, that's true. It's the word. Somehow, like, I mean, we put so much value and so much power into words, which are just words. But I mean, at the end of the day, they are. I mean, the words have their purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And they should be used as such, you know. Do you even have any cravings ever?
Um, well, I did when I did just beef only. That was like, oh, can I have some eggs? Can I have some bacon? Can I have some lamb? Can I have some fish? Or even a piece of fruit? Like at that point, I was so desperate. I was like, give me a flippin' salad, which was like, when would I ever ask for a salad? But at that point, I think it was too much for me mentally versus
Yeah.
having more variety is a little bit better for my personality type. Some people, they like that all or nothing, like just tell me to eat beef. That's it. For me, I feel like my mind doesn't work like that, where I need to have, at least for my past, like I have the word freedom tattooed on my ribs because to me, having the choice, I know there are some people who they do not want to have the choice. They want to say, just tell me to eat carnivore and let's not think about anything else. For me, I do like to know I can eat anything. I can eat a donut today. It's just not going to make me feel good. So why am I going to do it? So for me, having the ability to eat in flexibility, I guess, mentally makes me feel better, though I don't actually do it. It's just something to like give me the peace of mind. Like you're an adult, you can make your decisions. You know what foods are going to cause you which issues. So that is up to you.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you think that's ever, so I like to go back and forth between this, like a true craving, like,
Oh yeah.
you know, to me, a true craving is like, I'm eating beef and salt, but like my body needs an orange, you know, or like it needs eggs, you know, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. So it's like not a craving per se, but like a, just like this pull to be like, oh, you know, like maybe there's a nutrient in eggs
Yeah.
that, you know, like I need. So do you feel like that's how more of your cravings were? Like when you were just eating beef, right? Was that more of like, okay, I think I just really need an egg, like this intuitive being of like, I need an egg.
Yes. I think it is something where even if we can't recognize it, that there may be some sort of nutrient deficiency going on. I know like people eat only beef, and if that works for them and they're healthy and well, I'm not saying anything about them. They should keep doing whatever makes them feel the best. But for me, I could tell if I'm not sleeping as good or if I'm not having as much energy, I'm probably not getting in the right nutrients. Because if I was getting in the right nutrients, I'm going to sleep good, I'm going to feel good, I'm going to have lots of energy. So having no energy is, in my mind, fundamentally linked to not having enough nutrients or a specific kind of nutrient. So yes, I do have cravings.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And so that's, you know, I think a big thing since going like animal-based carnivore is like you know, it's like I definitely am a recovered binge eater, but it's like I don't at all want anything other than what I'm eating. You know, I won't lie, my first few days of carnivore, I was like, I want a piece of fruit. But I think it was, you know, the adjustment, like going into ketosis. But after that, like I felt so good. And but throughout the last almost year that I've been in like the animal-based carnivore space, I have zero cravings. And I think that that's so monumental to, you know, recognizing that like this diet or this lifestyle is literally putting your brain back in homeostasis, even, you know, with like changing your thoughts, changing your like cravings, you know, having none, you know, and really like eating intuitively. By intuitive, I mean like, but maybe I need beef today because I need more iron, you know, or maybe I need others because I need more of that. But yeah, and that's kind of what we touched on.
Well, have you ever been in the grocery store and thought, oh my gosh, I need to walk down the dog food aisle? Like, I'm really wanting some dog food. Like, that's how I feel when I walk past like cereal aisles or the checkout lane that has all the Snickers and candy bars and stuff. I don't look at that as like, oh, I need a Reese's peanut butter cup. But I used to. I used to look by, walk down the soda lane and be like, it's glistening, it's shining, it's lighting up my brain. I want it. And then now I like don't even realize those things are there. It's just the
Yeah.
same thing as me, like dog food aisle. Like I don't even like, huh? What? There's a dog food aisle? I don't even know it was there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm absolutely the same way. It's not like you walk by, or even like, you're in the store and you're like, crap, I need to be on the refrigeration section. I need to walk through this aisle. And it's like the world's most goodiest goodies. You're not, I don't ever walk through the aisle and I'm like, oh yeah, I just need all of this. I'm like, yeah, what? Trying to get to the beef. I'm trying to get to the beef.
We've been filming in the grocery store here lately for like little TikToks and stuff. And like, we're like, where do you find, like, we had to ask the ladies, like, hey, where do you find that? Because like, we didn't even know where some of these things were.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's so awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it just completely, and all of that to say, like, it completely changes your perspective and your mindset.
I would tell myself to eat more protein. Because if you eat more protein and it satiates you and it keeps you full, then no matter how many, like if I'm super stuffed, it's like if you walk out of a buffet and you are stuffed, if you try to offer me a cookie, I can't even say yes because I'm just too full. So the thing is, my protein choices at that time would have been chicken. And I don't know that there were that many beef options at my school, other than like a hamburger patty, which is what I eat anyway. So I probably should have just done that. But I really rarely ever had red meat. And that was not because I learned that red meat's causing me cancer or anything like that. Like I'd never even heard of that until I went on social media. People were like, red meat's going to cause you colon cancer. I was like, what? Since when? Like I'd never heard about these myths. So I was not anti-red meat. I just always thought chicken was the healthy option. So I would have probably told myself, you don't have to eat so much chicken, but do eat protein and probably, whatever that means, just start there. Start small.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think it's great advice.
Thank you.
Well, oh, yes, of course. And smiles.
Yeah.
Protein and smiles. I did
Yes.
hear this thing, and I will end with this, but it's just too good. So I think it was Mel Robbins, but I can't really remember who it was. But she was like, if you're feeling down or like off, she was like, go high five yourself in the mirror. And honestly, I did that for a while, and it just like makes you laugh, and it just like brings this like big smile like to your face. And so like, I mean, beef and smiles. That's it.
Hey, steak and smiles. Yeah, I used to go in the mirror, and I heard that if you smile at yourself, then it's supposed to make you happier. So like, I would be like crying, like trying to smile. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling better.
I'm feeling better. I feel like every time I do it, I really like just can't take myself seriously. And then I'm like, how does anybody else take me seriously?
I get it.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I think there's so many good nuggets for people here to see and hear. And we will do this again for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. You're excellent host, had great questions. It was nice meeting you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Until we meet again.